I'm going to try to get through this introduction without taking a breath. You ready? AUSA from the Eastern District of New York from 1991 to 2002 as a mob prosecutor, FBI Enron Task Force, General Counsel for the FBI, Chief of the Criminal Fraud Section at the Department of Justice, Special Counsel Bob Mueller's lead prosecutor in the Trump-Russia affair, law professor for NYU, MSNBC legal analyst. The man can't hold a job. My friend Andrew Weissmann.
What is it that we can do? I think it's very hard to get through to a whole range of people, and certainly in speaking on MSNBC, there's only a certain segment of the community that you can speak to, and within that parameter, I still think there's a lot that people in this room can do if they care about what could easily happen in 2024. And I think there's sort of two ways to think about it. One is sort of the obligation of the media to do something that Lawrence does, which is to not cover the easy story and Trump's adjectives and adverbs and name calling, that's not news, and to do the hard work of drilling down on what is false. I think of it as when I was a trial lawyer doing cross-examinations, where you actually put in the work on what is the falsity, what is the evidence, and not just cover the day-to-day quotidian examples of that might sell because people are sort of titillated by it, but should really focus on the substance of what is happening. And I think the other thing that I think is really useful that's sort of a media focus that needs to be there and needs to focus on facts, and as Amy Berman Jackson used to say, the law is a place, and the courtroom is a place where facts and law still matter. And I think that's true. It should be true for the media, where it really drills down on substance and does the hard work. I think for people in this room, I think it's really important to speak to the left. And I'll tell you like an anecdote from a few nights ago where I was chatting with somebody who was saying there was no way in God's green earth that they were going to vote for President Biden. That his foreign policy is bad, that he hadn't done enough on the environment, that he hadn't done enough on civil rights, and all of that, even if you accept that, which I actually don't, but even if you accept that, I was like, what is the alternative?
Yeah.
And I'm very concerned about the sort of what I will derogatorily called sort of radical chic. I just saw Maestro, so I'm sort of very focused on that issue of the sort of thinking that that's somehow cool or interesting. And I hear from people on the left the kind of disinformation that I heard when I was on the Mueller team looking at 2016 disinformation. The disinformation with respect to Hillary and Trump was about, aren't you tired of the lesser of two evils? They're both really bad. Hillary's bad for blacks. I mean, there's an onslaught of Russian disinformation. And it was shocking to me to hear that then from somebody who was, seemed like a nice person, but saying, I'm sick and tired of voting for the lesser of two evils. And I was like, welcome to my world. I'm old enough to, I was disillusioned when, McCarthy didn't win, when I was in elementary school. And I think that kind of cynicism is something that it's not true that you have to say, oh, well, we'll never get through to MAGA Republicans and the Fox News and the OANN. The MSNBC does have a role, all of us have a role to speak to people about what is at stake here, and not to have that kind of cynicism about maybe a president that you don't think is perfect, but is by far so much better in terms of, again, not, it's just to back up. I worked as a prosecutor for 21 years, and it still is shocking to me when people say, oh, well, you're like a liberal Democrat who's like anti-Trump, and I'm always thinking, I was a prosecutor for 21 years. I'm not really used to being called liberal. I teach at NYU. I can trust me, NYU students do not think of me that way. It's really not a political issue. It is a question of democratic values in our country. So anyway, sorry to be a downer, but I think that is something that I think like all of us can do, and it's something that we can take home and actualize. So anyway, thank you, Glenn. Thank you.